grab your wine. It's time for Rosé All Day and Julie's a Mess, where we talk about current events and living in an intersex life. And now, here's Julie.
Hi, everybody. It's going to drive me nuts tonight. I have my tablet set up to read comments. Hi, everybody. It's going to drive me nuts tonight. I have my tablet set up to read comments. Hi, everybody. Which clearly that's not going to work out. So, which clearly that's not going to work out. Welcome to justjulie.com. This is Tuesday, and this is our live chat every week that we do. Last week we talked about hate on the internet, and we had a really rousing conversation going on in our chat. It is an interactive chat, and you can join us. This is currently replacing Rosé All Day on justjulie.com, which was our podcast that I did all of last year, but this still streams out to Spotify and Apple. So it's basically just me coming on each week and sharing with everybody that's watching kind of my thoughts on different things. And then also we have a new platform or a new tab on justjulie.com called Julie Answers, which allows people to go and ask me anything that they possibly want to ask me through that forum. And then I will answer those questions here each week. I will choose a few to answer. What is going on this week? So we have a few people joining us already. I was trying to make it easier for myself because an eye appointment yesterday, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well, because that leads into one of my topics tonight. But that's the reason I don't have tons of eye makeup on. I'm not as glam as I normally on. I didn't even put on earrings for you guys tonight. I'm sorry. It has been a long week, and it's only Tuesday. I literally am in the process of moving here in the town that I live in, from one side of town to the other side of the town. I have a lot going on. But we're going to get into that. Anyway, I just want to say hello to Jennifer Dunham. Hello. And hi, Steve and Coleman. Thank you. Brooklyn Miss, hi. Someone stole my phone service. What? How does that even happen? You're still beautiful. Thank you. Hiya, Dylan. Dylan has joined, it looks like. Let love trickle. Hello, my love. My name is April, and Miss Blair added me to jump on here, or asked me to jump on here so I could learn a few things. Great. I think you might have been, were you the nurse that was listening to the TikTok live earlier, April? And then hi, Dylan, of course, Dylan. And so we've got a lot of people in here already. So, last week we talked about hate, and we talked about hate being prevalent on the internet in many different forms and on different platforms in many different forms. And I had mentioned in TikTok this afternoon on the live on TikTok that it would be really, somebody came into the TikTok live, and of course, surprise, surprise, they were rude. It's literally a 5-minute occurrence, it seems, on all creators' platforms on TikTok. But when he came in, he was like, way to use that filter. And I was like, actually, I don't have a filter on, but thank you very much. Just means you think that I'm gorgeous, which I am. And then I also said we should create a filter. We should create a TikTok filter about kindness. And I was like, but how would that work, right? You would have to click on the filter and use the kindness filter And if you were going to say anything hateful or rude or mean, then it would automatically change your dialogue into a flowery, like positive dialogue. Like it would force you to be positive. That would be amazing. Somebody that creates these filters for TikTok, get on that. Hashtag kindness is free. But we are talking about that because it is still a rampant issue. It's still a rampant problem. Hello, Chrissy Bennett. And I'm glad that everybody is talking to each other. Yeah, it's a great idea, Maribel, Brooklyn Miss. So that would just be funny. You know, instead of all these beauty apps and everything else, which are great and we all like to use them, let's get a filter going that no matter what you say, it turns that into a flowery comment or response, right? I don't think anybody would use it. It certainly wouldn't trend because people tend to like to be mean-spirited. But that was a thought we had today. Moving on, today or tonight, we're going to talk about some medical frustrations that had to do with my, that have to do with my advocacy, but also with something a lot of intersex individuals talk about. I'm sure a lot of trans individuals on some level talk about or acknowledged about or acknowledge it. You know, something that a lot of people don't understand is being intersex, only 2% of intersex identifies as trans. But oftentimes we meet at this intersection because on some level they are fighting for some of the same things we're fighting for, and just invisibility. And then, so, I mean, we do kind of intersect in a way, but a lot of people are under the assumption that I'm trans and I don't identify as trans, but I am an intersex female or woman, and I have XXY. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. Not so much about that because you can find that content on my TikTok and on justjulie.com under my bio, but more about some of the issues in medical frustrations. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We are going to talk about trafficking, but only because I've been in a weird mood today. I've been in a weird mood all weekend with everything that I have going on. Sometimes I get a little mischievous. My mind goes off in different ways. Dylan will tell you last weekend we were in bed watching TV. We weren't doing adult fun time, which I have to mention that in a second too. But he was watching the show that he was really enthralled in, and he looked over and I'm on my tablet and he was like, "What is it with you and sharks?" And I was like, "Look, when I am stressed out, I like to play this game on Facebook called Shark Revolution, and I don't really play it to collect points, but if you go up to the top where the ocean water is, you can eat people. And when you eat them, they make this crunching bone sound, and and the people are screaming and running in all these different directions. And I guess you get points for eating the people, but you're supposed to dive down into the deep and like avoid mines, and that's too stressful for me. I just literally swim the shark back and forth along the top, eating people. Literally, that's all I do. And he was like, "What is it with you and all the sharks?" And I was like, "Look, in my next life, I'm coming back as a great white shark, and I'm going to eat all the assholes in the world. Just douchey people that come to the beach, I'm going to attack them. I'm going to help. Since I was kind this whole lifetime, in my next lifetime, I'm going to be like that character from The Walking Dead with the bat with the razor wire wrapped around it. Like, anyway, so Dylan was laughing because he was like, "What is going on?" Oh, and then after that, I was like, "Let's watch a shark movie." Dylan just said, then she was like, "Let's watch a shark movie." And I'm like, that's my aggression. That's how I get it out. So don't judge me. Anyway, it's called Shark what? I think it's called Shark Revolution. Anyway, and then you can like, you go from a little shark to a bigger shark. And then like, as you make more points to money, you can like I have never made it up to the prehistoric, like megalodon turf shark, but they've got those too. So I'm kind of like, but again, even if I ended up upgrading, I would still just swim along water. And I realized I was freaking out with so much anxiety that at one point the shark went up onto the bank, like in the little resort town. And I was so anxious, I just kept going. And I made him a land shark, and he literally ate everybody at the cafe and then got into a pond on the other side of the cafe. And Dylan's like, I'm sure he was like, I'm not really sure what to think right now. Honey, you're scaring me. So I digress. Let's go ahead and back. So we're going to talk about trafficking a little bit. We're going to talk about just laugh out loud. It was funny, but she was yelling at the people and fish. True story. True story. True story. Don't tell my secrets, babe. So tonight, let's start off by talking about the Murdach trial. So I'm trying to bring in some pop culture as well. Well, actually, before we get to the Murdach trial, I'm excited because I'm partnering with Wicked. First off, if it looks like I'm having issues with my teeth, I am. Everybody wants to know what the ongoing saga is with Aspen Dental. It is ongoing. I can't really talk about it. The teeth that they made me are still giving me issues, still putting sores into my mouth. I've not been wearing them unless I'm doing a video like tonight or having to go out in public. I whistle with them. They clack. So just know that if it seems like I'm struggling, I am a little bit. It wouldn't be uncalled for me to just take them out of my mouth at some point, but I'm going to try not to do that. Okay. Now, I'm partnering with Wicked Tumblers because a lot of the individuals that follow me on TikTok, which I call my little cocktails, it is the cocktail family, much like Ophelia's tater tot family and so many of the other families that are on and communities that are on TikTok, have been asking me for little cocktail merch for the better part of like a year and a half. Can you get little cocktail merch? I'm your little cocktail. So Wicked Tumblers and I are working together. And in the next few weeks, we are going to set up a online link on TikTok here at justjulie.com. It'll be kind of wherever my social media is. And you will be able to purchase for $25 a tumbler, a wine tumbler. We have two that are going to be available for purchase out of the gate. And then we'll add more as they're more popular. But the first one looks like this. And it is in my standard pink colors of ballet pink and bubblegum pink and purple swirled. They are epoxied. They are machine washable. And they say little cocktail on the front in silver lettering. And then on the back, it just says love just Julie. So I actually have 4 of these that are arrived kind of as pre-promotion. And what we've been doing on TikTok is auctioning them off for $10 more. So $35 if you want to buy one of the remaining 3 that I have, because I sold 2 already. Then you would Venmo me or Cash App me and go ahead and send me $35. And then, and we're running that at the bottom right now, my Venmo and my Cash App. And then screenshot that receipt, message me on Instagram under Miss America 19 Never, which is my account on Instagram. And then send me your address. And then I will sign the glass for you, the pink glass, and I will stick a little note inside there for you, and I will mail it off. And I'm mailing 2 off this weekend. So that is the first one. It's 8 ounces. It will hold a can of soda, whatever you want to drink. Lord knows I want to pour gin into it right now. Now, the other one that we're going to be offering is the one I'm actually drinking out of tonight. I know normally we drink rosé on here. I'm drinking orange juice because I just feel depleted today with moving and packing and getting all that stuff done. So this one actually has one of my sayings from TikTok on it, and it's little cocktail, and it's done in my favorite color, seafoam green, with a purple and blue undertone swirl. And then it says at the bottom, adult fun time. For those of you not in the know or listeners that haven't heard me talk about adult fun time before, on TikTok, you often have to subjugate and code certain words so you're not reported and flagged. So adult fun time for me on my lives and different things I do on TikTok is code for sex. So we call it adult fun time. We have a lot of fun when people come in and they're like, "What's adult fun time?" And I'm like, naked bounce house time, naked laser tag, naked putt-putt golf. Like, it's adult fun time. That's all you need to know. But people that know. If you know, you know. So it says little cocktails, adult fun time on the front, and then on the back it still says just Julie. This is the only one that I have currently of the adult fun time one. So when the link goes live, you'll be able to order the adult fun time one. And the pink standard little cocktail. They will be $25 online, and that includes your shipping price, and they will ship internationally. So have at it. You wanted merch? Now you've got it. And the good thing is my only income right now is my merch. So I'm telling people to go crazy. Go crazy and buy that merch. We will be adding t-shirts and different things as well. Also, if you know, I have another side business that I'm trying to get up off the ground. I've been trying to do this since 2018. It's going to be mostly serving the LGBT plus or LGBTQIA plus community. Hopefully I can start going to a lot of prides around the country and pushing this new website and merchandise. So at least that's coming down the pike too. But as I told my PR team the other day, I have my hands in a lot of cookie jars, but I'm not going to see fruition from those cookie jars for a while, right? So, but just wanted to let everybody know that merchandise is coming. Okay, so let's talk about the Murdach trials. So I was unaware of what was going on, but I was going through so much over the weekend and starting to pack and getting prepared to do things that on Sunday night, I called my mom. Sunday afternoon, I called my mom and dad and was talking to my mom and dad. And my mom said, "Well, you certainly have a lot going on. Have you been watching the Murdach trial?" And I was like, "What? No." I'm like, "I barely have time to pee, Mom. I barely have time to do anything for me in this current moment." And so I was like, "So I certainly don't have time to watch the news or trial TV or anything like that." And she was like, "Well," she was like, "it'll totally get your mind off things if you watch any of the content on," she didn't say content. That's a word that's currently stuck in my head at all times because content's so popular right now. But she said, "Watch the Murdach trial. Watch the Murdach trial." So I'm going to ask the people that are currently live with us, have you been watching the Murdach trial? I love even just reading some of the comments on Facebook and other posts, but there is a Netflix documentary that talks in detail about this story. And I thought, well, that's interesting, and the fact that it's coinciding with his national trial. So, and it's literally happening right around the corner from Savannah in Beaufort, South Carolina. So, if you don't know what it's about, I guess there's this family in a small town in Beaufort, or a small county in Beaufort, and the Murdachs, and they basically run the town. Like, they're in law enforcement and law, and they've got everybody in their back pocket, and they're wealthy. And Richard Murdach Sr., the one that's on trial currently, is it's one of those families where they probably got off the Mayflower, and they've been occupying that area since. And the story starts off with, in 2019, Paul Murdach, is his son, who was in high school at the time, like to drink. And the Murdachs, often that law firm, whenever there were festivals in town, they talk about it in the documentary, would provide alcohol to the children associated with the law firm. And one of the girls said, and by children, I mean people under 17, but older than probably, 14 to 16, 14 to 17. You're like, what? And so they would help them get all liquored up. They all like to drink. That is a Southern pastime. No condemnation on people that drink, but maybe not the best thing to be doing. Anyway, his high school son is dating this one girl. And then that girl has two friends in high school, and they have two boyfriends, and they all the six of them all kind of hang out together and do all these things together. Prom, they've all grown up together. And they would go out drinking, but the son, Paul, was always the worst offender, would always get just blitzed, and people would say he couldn't control himself. And so one night they go to a clam bake or an oyster boil or something, and they're on the Beaufort River, and he has been drinking, used his brother's driver's license, his older brother's driver's license to Buster to get the alcohol. And then they all go out in this boat and they start pre-gaming. And then they get on this boat, go to the oyster thing. After the oyster thing, a lot of them are ready to go home. Paul wants to stop at a bar on the river on the way home, drink even more. Then they're like, maybe you shouldn't drive. He was like, it's my fucking boat. Nobody's going to drive it. I know this river better than anybody. And then he runs it head on into a bridge and pylon, and everybody flies off the boat. And one girl, Mallory Beach, goes missing. She had head trauma from hitting, I guess, the bridge or the pylon. They didn't find her for days. And everybody's upset. All the kids on the boat are upset. And then the spin cycle comes out. The Murdach spin cycle comes out. And the Murdach family starts to try and acquiesce the situation. Everybody's in their pocket. Family members and parents of the kids involved are starting to be brought to the table and said, just be quiet. We'll take care of everything. It'll be okay. And the girl isn't found for days. Nobody is arrested for driving the boat, even though everybody said it was Paul. Paul tried to say it was this kid named Connor. It's all a part of this documentary, and it's all about this kind of cover-up. And on some level, not shocking. I mean, even my mom said, we've grown up in Southern towns. You've been raised in Southern towns. You know what it's like. And I thought, yeah. And it calls to mind for me. People would always ask when I did the tours last year, what's your feeling on Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil? And what's your take on that? And why was Jim Williams never convicted of doing any wrong? If you're not familiar with that Southern story, here in Savannah, Jim Williams was a resident. You can look it up. It's the basis for the book and movie Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. But essentially, he shot his gay lover in the back twice in self-defense after a Christmas party in the 80s and was never convicted of any wrongdoing after 2 civil trials and 2 federal trials. And so people are like, what do you think that was about? And I said, look, small towns have secrets. And certain players in those small towns have secrets, and they have a lot of people in their pocket, and people will do almost anything necessary to keep their secrets secret. And I think that's what happened in the Jim Williams trial, and I think that's kind of what started to happen in this Mallory Beach, Paul Murdach story. And all these people, all these friends are reliving it and talking about it, all these years later on the Netflix documentary. So then you go from the Murdach family trying to hush it up. Paul is finally arrested, pleads no contest or not guilty, pleads not guilty But his trial, he was not in an orange jumpsuit. He was not brought into trial in handcuffs. Literally walked in like he was signing a letter to go to college. No big deal, right? Pleaded not guilty. And nothing ever happened. And so, obviously, friends and family members of the others involved are starting to get upset and angry, and starting to hire private detectives and have other people come in, lawyers, and trying to figure out what actually is going on. Well, 2 years after that accident, so fast forward to 2021, right? Paul and his mother are gunned down, right? They're shot. They're murdered. They're shot. And of course, Richard does the 911 call, and he's like, oh my God, my wife's been murdered and my son. They talk about in this documentary about how Paul and his then girlfriend in high school had a car accident coming home from a Christmas party one year. And she literally tells the story of she got out to call 911. Paul grabbed the phone from her and said, don't, cut it off. And then Paul's mother and father showed up and flipped the truck back over out of the ditch, cleaned all the guns out of the back of the truck, got rid of all the alcohol paraphernalia that was in the truck, and then said, we'll take care of it, and told her not to say anything. And so you're like, you see a pattern, right, evolving. So then within this documentary, they start talking about how, and I'm sure it's all part of the trial, they start talking about how Buster, the oldest son, had had some kind of tryst with a gay guy in town named Stephen Smith, I think that's his name. And so then all of a sudden, Stephen Smith ends up dead. And then the woman that raised basically Paul as a nanny that had worked for the Murdachs, she ends up having a suspicious death. Then they find out that Richard Murdach has been laundering all this money from his clients and from other businesses in town for years. And that comes into play. And he's finally arrested on murder charges for his son and wife. And that's what the whole trial has been playing out for, I guess, this last week. I've not seen a lot of the trial footage. However, I did see the documentary on Netflix. It is a great watch. It's a limited series, so it's only 3 episodes. You will binge that stuff, and you will literally be like, what? Because it is just proof that it still happens, and that people think they can get away with murder. Let's read some of these comments. Dylan said, that's why I never went there, only 20 minutes from my dad. Never heard of them. Chrissy Bennett, I mean, my mother literally, when I said I hadn't heard about it, she was like, gee, Julie, you really do live under a rock. I don't. I'm just so busy doing so many other things with my advocacy and everything else that's going on. I don't have to, that when I sit down and watch television, I'm so already anxious in the moment. I make Dylan watch shark shit. Because that's what I need to filter down and calm down. I need to see a big, massive animal eating people that deserve to be, well, maybe they don't deserve to be eaten. In my mind, in a movie, you're always thinking it's going to be the douchebag or the asshole that gets eaten first. And I live for it on some level. I kind of live for it, which is, I think, really twisted and sad. But so I haven't been watching it, and she was like, you have to watch. So when I watched the documentary, which you can see on Netflix, I literally was like, what? It is everything that, remember all the drama that used to come from shows like Gossip Girl and Pretty Little Liars that people just latched onto and were like, what? That's what this is like, drama-wise. And then everybody today that's been watching hours and hours of the trial have said that he's wonky donkey crazy. he is saying all this stuff. And my mom said he's bright, he's intelligent. But Charlie Manson was bright and intelligent, and Ted Bundy was bright and intelligent. So they're saying he may get off. Oh my word. I don't know if he will or not, but that's what they're saying. So let's read some of these comments. Oh yeah, Timmy. Jennifer Dunham was like, Timmy is the name that they would call Paul, the young kid, when he got drunk. So when he would get drunk and he would almost become a different entity, his friends would call him Timmy. This is Timmy, right? I was wondering what you were saying there, and now I know. You can tell I'm a northern girl, Chrissy Bennett. I need something new to binge. Binge that. Seriously. The Murdach murders. You binge that, and you'll be like, what? Like, you literally... it is crazy. It is legit crazy. And then just to read all the comments online is kind of funny too. It's 7:31. So we are going to go ahead and roll right into medical frustrations. So to everybody that doesn't know, I went back to my eye doctor yesterday. Now, don't worry. Don't worry, but I was diagnosed a couple of years ago with macular degeneration of my retinas and bleeding of my retinas. And so for about 3 to 4 years, 2018 through about 2022, I had to go and get monthly injections in each eye to reduce swelling. I had laser treatments done in Florida with Dr. Houston in Orlando, great ophthalmologist, really knew his stuff. It is hard when you move to a new location, finding doctors that will, it's hard for anybody when you're in a new location to find doctors that you feel you can trust and be on the up and up with. I often laugh because you'll go into a lot of medical offices and the nurses tend to sometimes know more than the actual doctor. I prided myself through most of my XXY life to surround myself with great doctors. And I have a couple of key tricks. I've shared those before with how to make sure that you are getting the optimal, especially when you're intersex, out of doctors. I often advocate now that if you find out now that you're going to have a kid that's on the intersex spectrum or even XXY, go find a young doctor that has gotten out of medical school in the last 7 to 8 years and is trying to build their practice out and get them to be your doctor because they're hungry. They want to learn, but they're also hearing more about intersex than they ever were taught before. And they're still not taught a lot, but they're hearing about more of it. So they come out and they're like, oh, I've kind of heard about that. Oh, and you have it. Oh, let me help you figure out what we need. So I often will advocate for younger people and younger families that are just finding out to go find and even older people that are finding out through fertility issues and everything else. Find yourself a newer doctor, because if you continue to go see the doctors that are your age or older, you're going to have pushback on some level. They're going to say to you, well, I don't know anything about that. Or how do you know that that's what you have, right? And on some level, intersex people talk all the time about how they're sick and tired of having to educate the doctors just to be able to get the quantitative and quality care that they deserve, and so I'm going to talk about that a little bit, because when I was diagnosed with the macular degeneration, and I had this discussion with Dr. Stephen Houston in Florida as well, it is common, and research has been done in XXY individuals, and they were still at that time when this study was done in 2017, referred to as being Klinefelter syndrome, because they hadn't made the distinct split that women can be born XXY as well. that they have now since 2020. But it was saying that individuals with XXY have more optical issues than not, and that they may suffer some of these optical issues early on. Certainly, intersex individuals on some level are predisposed to diseases that affect both males and females throughout their lifetime. Some will face them harder and some will face them on a light note, right? Some may not have these issues at all. It is a spectrum. Not, we often say if you meet me and I'm XXY, you could put me next to another XXY female and we would have very different medical histories and trajectories. And this, you could stick me next to an XXY male that never had to transition for health reasons, and we would have a very different. That's why when I did that podcast initially with the original Intersex Connect Live, they called me Julie Mayfield, not your average 47XXY, because I seem to have gotten everything. Like God literally has said, I'm going to make you pretty, but I'm going to put you on the struggle. No, I'm not even going to put you on the struggle bus. I'm going to make you the driver of the struggle bus. Like, thanks, God. So, and you do it because that's part of your life journey, right? What are you going to do? Succumb to the depression and fall apart, or strap on your big girl panties and ride the beast? So I ride the beast. No comments from the peanut gallery. And we move on, right? And so I go yesterday and the doctor was like, well, you have lost 4 lines of vision in your left eye since August, which was 6 months ago. And he was like, but your right eye is a little bit stronger. I don't get it. Do you have any of these things going on? And I said, nope. And he was like, nothing? And I went, nope. He was like, blood pressure? And I was like, nope. And he was like, this? And I was like, no. And he's like, blood clotting-ish? Nope. Nope. But I said, but I have noticed a change in my left eye. Yes. And I just thought it was allergies and pollen and dry eyes. He said, well, that could be some of it. He goes, I think it's because you're diabetic. And I went, I'm not diabetic. And he was like, oh, well, but that's usually what causes this. And I was like, no, it's not. And so I had to share with him, I said, I don't know if you just don't want to read my client profile that I filled out a year ago with you, or you're just, I don't know. And I got a little upset in the moment. And I said, it is connected to being XXY. Maybe not fully, but it is. And I said, I can bring you documentation that you could read in your spare time that would educate you about that. And he literally looked at me and he went, well, I don't know anything about genetics. And I went, duh. Like, I wasn't being kind at this point. I was like, oh, that's obvious. And he goes, well, and I don't know anything about being XXY. I was waiting for him to call me trans because, that has been the general consensus at doctor offices across Savannah, Georgia for the last couple of weeks for me. So I was just waiting. I was like, well, oh God, here comes another Aspen shit. But he didn't. He just said, well, I don't know a lot about it. And when I got back in the car and was talking to somebody and then talking to my PR firm about it, I was like, that's my point. Intersex people are tired of having to educate doctors that are older that literally have no idea about what you're going through. And you're asking them in this doctor-client relationship to make educated guesses about your care. But he just told me to my face, well, I don't know anything about genetics, and I don't know anything about being XXY. And I literally thought, okay, I need to find another eye doctor. Now, he said, we're going to have to go back to the shots on your left eye. We don't need to do it on the right eye, but we're going to start the injections again. Then he talked to me like I was 4. And I was like, this isn't my first time at the rodeo. I know what you're doing. Like, I'm aware. Again, if you looked at my client profile, you would see I've done eye injections and laser treatment on both of my eyes for a solid 4 years in a row. Like, at some point, you're like, are you blatantly just trying to be an asswad? I was like, just give me the shot. Let's get going. Let's go. And he was like, well, first, I said, I get it. First, you're going to open my eye. Then you're going to dilate it. Then you're going to add some lidocaine. Then you're going to give me an injection that will numb the whole cornea. Then you're going to stick another needle in with the medicine. And I said, are you using Avastin? And he was like, how do you know about that? And I went, for the love of fucking Christmas, I just told you this is not my first time at the rodeo. Like, you're literally trying not to reach out across the room and just strangle the provider. And I looked over at the nurse and I was just like, and he said, no, we're using a new drug. It could cause you to go blind, but I think it's better than the Avastin. And I said, can I ask what the cost is on that new drug that you want to use? And he was like, oh yeah, it's $10,000. And I went, you're going to bill my insurance company $10,000 every time you give me that shot. He was like, yeah, but it'll help you see again. And I said, or not. You just told me it could make me go blind. So when we talk about frustration in the medical community, these are some of those frustrations. It would be very interesting to hear what some of your frustrations are out in YouTube land and TikTok land and social media land when it comes to dealing with doctors. Now, here are the tips I will tell you. I believe every doctor-client relationship, I don't care what kind of doctor they are for you, it is a relationship. And if you want it to be a healthy relationship, especially when it concerns your health, it needs to be a functioning, healthy relationship. Never should you go into a doctor's office and feel like they are telling you what you're going to do, right? It is a relationship. You should be able to say to your doctor, just like I currently have a doctor here in Savannah, Georgia, who I adore. And not all insurances are taken by him. And I think actually I pay out of pocket for him, but that's because the insurance that I have wasn't going to cover him. And I knew he was good enough that I wanted to work with him. So they bill me and I pay my premiums off or whatever, but I pay a little bit extra to see him. But he literally is so golden. He understands XXY. He understands intersex. I chose a gay doctor for a reason because, I used to present in the male body. I still have issues from that, but I also am now in this female body. And we are able to sit across. I go into his office. I tell him exactly what my concerns are. We then talk about possible procurement of what we need to find a fix, right? Or to find treatment. We talk about that. We talk about, I'm able to go in and say, this was just written about lupus and intersex people, and this drug is being used. Is this something we could try? We literally have an open relationship, which I think is key. If you're going into a doctor's office where the doctor is saying, do this, this, and this, and if you don't do this, I'm not going to be your doctor, then you need to be standing up and saying, great, you're not my doctor, and you need to walk out. And I know that insurance companies make it difficult, and I know that certain plans make you pick doctors that are in your network, but at the end of the day, it's your health, and nobody else is going to advocate for you. There will be people out there that will try and guide you in the right direction and give you quantifying information. But at the end of the day, you have to do it for yourself. You have to advocate for yourself. Somebody said to me once, oh my God, all your doctors love you. What is your secret? And this was back when I was in Orlando and I was having all the pre-stuff done. And I said, oh, easy. I just sleep with them. And that's my humor. I haven't slept with my doctors. But on some level, you want a doctor that you have that kind of relationship with, not a sexual relationship, hear me out, but a relationship where they are so invested in you as an individual person in their life that they care about you. And when they care about you, they'll care about you. And they'll care about your care. My current doctor here in Savannah, and I just say this because I adore him, is Dr. Raymond Martins. He's at the Starland Clinic off of White Bluff. I don't know if he's taking new patients, but literally a couple of months ago, I walked in and I had to talk to him about some other stuff. And then he asked how I was doing mentally. It was right around, I think it was around December, because I had just come back from my little brother's wedding. And I was just struggling with some stuff. And I literally sat on the floor of his office sobbing. And he allowed me to do it. He didn't rush me out of the room. He took his time with me. We sat back up. We talked about some other things. We moved on to some other things. He gave me a hug. He shared with me that he really cared about me. But I put myself in those positions with those kind of doctors because that's the relationship that you need to be having with your doctors. You need to be able to go in and say, I don't want to try this because of this reason. I don't want to do this because I'm already on this for that. And wouldn't that counteract this on some level? And I don't want to take that because I read, and that's the other thing. I don't feel like patients read the fine print. You should be reading all that fine print on any drug that you're taking. It's only going to take a few minutes to read that fine print, but you need to read it because doctors aren't necessarily paying attention to drug interactions. And they're certainly not, I mean, you have to read it and you have to go back and be like, why would I take this? It's going to cause shaking in my body, but I already present with nighttime seizures. I'm using myself as an example. So why am I going to take a drug that could enhance shaking in my body, and then I won't know if I'm having a seizure or if that's a side effect from the drug? And then you need a doctor that'll say, that's very interesting. We need to look into that. Okay, don't take that right now. Let's look at some other avenues. That's a doctor relationship. But so many doctors these days have so many people coming in and out of their office because they're trying to build their client base and make more money, that they are not giving you the care that you deserve or need. So that's just touching on medical frustrations. A lot of intersex individuals freak out when they have to go see any kind of medical doctor, dentist, anything, because they feel like they're going to be treated less than. They may not have the power or the voice to step up for themselves. They may not have that confidence. And then when they're treated poorly, they slink back and die off, which on some, whatever, but that's what we're going to say about that. And he gets paid the big bucks. Brooklyn Miss Mirabelle said, yeah, that shit sounds like the definition of insanity. Like, who's making six figures here? Right. Now, we're going to hop over from that into we have about 10 minutes left of this week's episode. And we've talked about a lot already. It's crazy when you're talking and you're sharing your thoughts, how fast time flies by. We've already talked about the Murdach trial. We talked about merchandise for TikTok and justjulie.com in the form of little cocktail glasses. We have talked about medical frustrations, kind of talked about that eye issue a little bit. Didn't really break it down into intersex stuff, but there's other content on justjulie.com and TikTok that will share my journey with you and some of the other intersex and things that we face. Aspen Dental, if people didn't know about that, I think I was going to talk about it last week. I didn't. It's on so much of my other social media. But going back to that medical frustration, I was in their Savannah office about 4 weeks ago trying to get my initial original set of dentures fixed with a reline. And the lab tech destroyed them to where they wouldn't fit anymore in my mouth, like destroyed them. And they had cost the initial procedure to even get that denture set in California in 2015 cost me about $36,000 all said and done. I had to have extensive jaw surgery done, all of my teeth taken out, all due to XXY stuff. but I was happy with the doctor in California that gave me that smile. Dentures at that time were still being handmade for the most part. And that fit has served me well for the last 16 years. This fit has changed my jawline, has changed my appearance. And then what was said, and this is only after he destroyed the first set, and we went back and said, you owe me the difference for my original dentures that you destroyed. And so they said, we'll make you 2 new sets. They'll be the same. We'll make them the color that you want. Well, guess what, guys? The color is already fading, which never happened in the original set that I had. This set was made in Canada by a machine. The other set was made in America, not what I was originally promised. And then they keep glossing over the biggie. And the biggie elephant in the room that nobody on their end wants to talk about is I was lying in the chair and I'd come back to complain about the way that they had treated my initial set of dentures when the lab tech said, his name was Kevin, and he says, well, it's probably mad that it makes its jawline look a little more masculine, which is what it would have looked like prior to it transitioning. Then the other tech comes out. She was a very sweet girl. She walks back in. She's looking all awkward. And I'm looking at her and I said, first, I'm not trans. Second, that's not a conversation that should be going on in any office, much less a medical office, and much less while the whole office is filled with patients. She goes back in to make some minor adjustments with him. The conversation goes down a little bit more, but you still hear him say, I was hit on once by a trans woman. It's not really my thing, but you would never know that she had something different between her legs. You'd never know. She was stunning. He comes back in with the girl this next time, sits in the room with me, and literally was like, well, you know, they look great. And I said, you gave me an overbite. And he was like, oh, an overbite is natural, Miss Mayfield. And I said, if an overbite is natural, why do so many people put their kids in braces to get rid of an overbite as adults? It's not natural. Then he shifts the conversation and says, what kind of actress are you? But I was still stuck on what he'd done in my dentures. So because I resort, when I'm uncomfortable and when I am feeling pressured upon, I resort to comedy. I've done it my whole life. I might get that from my mom because I remember a situation when I was little where our house was broken into and the thieves were literally leaving the front door as we were coming in the back door. And she turned to my older brother and said, take Brad into the back. Y'all go search the closets to make sure nobody's hiding in them. Like, funny now when you look back on it. My brother did not find that amusing at all. He was like, what? But that's where I go. That's where I go. And so in this moment in that office, I said porn. And then I said, just kidding. And he said, well, I watch trans porn with my dog sometimes. Again, whole office can hear. Not, you know, it's an open plan office with like no roof lines. The whole office could hear. There's an older man sitting in the room next to me. And then, not that I should have to tell my intersex story in that moment, but I felt like I had to tell my intersex story in that moment, just so they would understand that I'm not trans. But it didn't matter in the end because Aspen is still not apologized for that. They've kind of skirted around all that. And now, 4 weeks later, when my teeth don't fit and I'm losing confidence and work and having to still be very public in my advocacy, we're at a different point in the game. Medical frustrations, pushing that aside. Now, let's talk about human trafficking. My frustration, real fast, Christy said, my frustration is when I find a provider that I trust and really, and I'm assuming I'm reading it the way you typed it. My frustration is when I find a provider that I trust and really like ends up moving. So I think you mean the provider ends up moving. Like you find somebody you really trust, they either move out of network or they move cities or they move their practice, and then you're like, or maybe you move and you find somebody you can trust and then you have to move. So yeah, that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier. If all doctors were on board, I often said this too, I've said this before too in many advocacy programs, we as people need to hold them to a higher directive. And what I mean by that is, I don't think learning new stuff is, I think there are a lot of doctors out there that they think, oh, I'm getting a new nurse out of nursing school, or I'm getting a new doctor out of, medical school to come to my practice. Well, let them do with the new stuff because that's what they've been learning. I don't think it's uncalled for to ask an older doctor to give up a few Saturdays of golf to go to recurrent training for new techniques that are coming out in the field that they practice in, right? Or more inclusion training. I don't think that's something we shouldn't be asking for. And the reason I say that is, think about the jobs that we require that of the job, right? Hairstylist, we send them back to school throughout the year so they can learn the newest cut and the newest style and how to color better. And we send hairstylists to recurrent training. They're pushed to go to recurrent training. We push our flight attendants. Flight attendants have to go to yearly recurrent training to keep their job. So we need to be sending doctors to current retraining. I don't think that's something that's hard to ask, And I think the doctors that really do care about patients will say, yeah, it's been 20 years since I graduated from medical school. Let me go back and find out some of these new treatments and let me learn about some of these things that are becoming very heir apparent because they're now being talked about because social media is so large. I don't think for any doctor, recurrent training should be off the table. And some people are like, they do go to recurrent training. And I'm like, no, they don't. They go to medical conventions and they get kickbacks and pushbacks to push certain drugs from the Drug Administration. And they may get a free dolphin swim or a free round of the back 8 at a posh country club, but they're not going for recurrent training. We all know what they go to those conventions for. And a lot of times it's to find women like me to have adult fun time with while their wives are back in Utah. I don't have anything against the doctors that try. It's just on the level that I'm at now at 48, moving into my older years where I really have to be cognizant of what I go through. I'm blessed in the doctors that I have on my team. But I hear so many horror stories about the few in the intersex community that are strong enough to go out and get that care, and then they don't get it. And it always kind of filters back in, well, I had to educate them. And they call me a liar. And they said, well, how do you know you have that? And, oh, I don't believe in that. And that's not okay. Brooklyn Miss, if they cannot treat you for whatever reason, it should be their duty and desire to help you find a physician that is suitable. How hard is that? But, they'll push that off on a tech or a nurse or whoever's working the front desk. Or they'll say, well, you need to call your insurance network and they can give you a list of people. And you're like, or you can go back to recurrent training. But I've literally, again, in the intersex community. And I've heard it in the cisgendered community too. My dad years ago went to a doctor. He was in a small town at the time. And the doctor was like, well, if you don't do this, this, and this, I'm not going to treat you. And I said, I hope you stood up to him and said, well, I'm not doing it. And it may be a blessing that you're not treating me. And I hope you went and found one that you like, because it should be that inner working relationship. Okay, let's move on to human trafficking. It's 8 o'clock. We're going to go a little bit over tonight, but that's the thing. It's my show. I can do that. What? So the human trafficking thing is just kind of, it's not funny. The actual act of human trafficking is a social and horrible spot in the world. This world is so chaotic with so many things that are going on in it. And so human trafficking, as we know it, has been going on for a while. There's nothing funny about it. I want to preface that before I say what I'm about to say. The reason we're talking about it tonight is because we mentioned it earlier in my TikTok. I think laughter sometimes is absolutely the best medicine, especially if you've had a long day or a long week. It's fun to laugh. It's fun to, to have humor in your life. I think that's very healing on some level, just like music, just like meditation. So earlier today, I was on Facebook. I'm in a group here in Savannah called Confessions of Savannah Singles. Now, they have groups like this across the country, literally across the country, and in different cities. And it's usually anywhere from 1,000 to more people that are struggling in the dating world. And they are in this group and they're saying, oh my gosh, have y'all come across this girl? Have you come across this guy? They're talking about their dating woes. They're talking about their frustrations. They're saying, stay clear of this person. Stay clear of that person. Don't see this person. Don't see that person. Let me tell you the red flags of this person. Let me, and it's all these posts. So today, one of the posts was talking about a gentleman, and they were like, let's have a debate about this particular member, right? And somebody said, well, we haven't heard him in here in a while. He's probably rotting in jail for human trafficking. And then the comments were kind of like, probably, and then they went kind of dark for a while. And I thought, this is too much drama for me. After watching the Murdach stuff and everything I'm going through in my life, I need to laugh. The comment that came out on the Facebook thread, I even said, don't come after me. This is literally a laughing moment. Don't come after me. I said, in some ways, it's sad that this is where my mind went. And I don't support human trafficking at all. And I think everybody should be safe. I was like, this is not a come for me moment. But when I thought about the fact that I'm in a dating group in my town that bitches about the quality type of men and women that are in this town to date, and the things that they do, and the culture being this very hookup culture that nobody wants to commit, nobody wants to plan a date, nobody wants to show interest in anybody, nobody wants to have a conversation, nobody wants to introduce you to their friends, because what if they've decided in 3 days that they don't want to date you anymore, and now they have to go back to their friends and say, I'm not dating her or him anymore, right? So I'm thinking about all of that as I'm reading this human trafficking thread about this person that's not in the group anymore, that they think is probably sitting in some foreign jail cell. And I thought, I currently am dating a great guy that I adore. But not 2 weeks ago, I'm that girl that I would be like, so what's so bad about human trafficking? Somebody shows some initial interest in you. They take you out. They take you to a bar. They roofie you. Maybe they use chloroform. They pick you up in their vehicle. Then they take you to the airport. They buy a ticket for you, or they smuggle you to another location. But hey, that's travel, right? You didn't have to show your passport. And then And then you get over there, they're going to have to feed you at some point. So that's like dinner, that's like a date. And then you wake up, in Turkey or Greece or Bali or wherever you happen to be, and he's going to introduce you to all his friends. I said, men today and women today don't put that much creativity into trying to get into your pants. I mean, basically, that's what I was saying. Now, there wasn't a lot of pushback from it. I just remember saying the irony in that moment that I was in this dating group and somebody on TikTok said, "Oh my God, you're killing me. I'm laughing so hard." But I literally, let me see if I can find it. And I'll just read it verbatim. Okay. So my post exactly was, is it sad that in the current culture, a girl like myself would consider being trafficked? I mean, a guy shows interest in you, picks you up, takes you out, then takes you on a trip overseas, introduces you to his friends. I know this is in poor taste, but it's funny that I lean towards that scenario instead of a guy that isn't creative in his initial approach at all. And on TikTok, I went as far as saying, guys today, it's this hookup culture. They don't want to commit. Girls too. So I'm not leaving anybody out. They don't necessarily want to commit. They want to get the milk for free without buying a cow. They don't want to be in a healthy relationship. They would like to come over, hang out, watch porn with you. Because look, they can say Netflix and chill all they want, but literally they're coming over and they're like, "Do you have porn?" And you're like, "No, there's no way I can get streaming porn on my internet connection." "Oh, do you have a laptop?" We're not doing that, right? And then they're like, "Well, I'm going to go home. Well, do you want to go to a movie tomorrow?" "No, I'm going to play World of Warcraft in my mother's garage from sunup to sundown." They're not even playing it in their own garage or basement. So, I mean, literally, in some way, I found the pure humor in trafficking sounds kind of like the date that everybody wants and the interest that everybody wants. It's like when you watch that television show, You, with that character that used to be on, I can't think of his name, a really attractive guy used to be on Gossip Girl. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, you watch that and you think, well, how bad would it be to have a boyfriend that would kill people and get them out of your way to make sure that you are set up for success? How bad would it be to have that kind of commitment from somebody? So that's what was said. Again, not making light of human trafficking at all. It is a serious issue that many entities around the country are trying to stop. And there are some real horror stories from that. I'm just trying to make you laugh a little bit and just let you know kind of where my twisted, warped sense of humor went in the midst of a chaotic day to day. So with all that said, thank you everybody for joining us tonight on our YouTube channel of justjulie.com. Again, we have a new tab on justjulie.com called Julie Answers, which is where you can go and ask me literally anything that you want answered. Relationship advice, lifestyle advice, really anything. Anything. We had a lady today in TikTok ask about her father had passed many years ago and she was so angry from his passing and she wanted to know how she gets the happy back. And so we've set up this new way for you to come and ask on justjulie.com. You can do it anonymously if you don't want to add your name to it. And then each week, that'll give me some questions to answer kind of at the beginning or on maybe I make a separate video that just answers those questions. They can be about me. They can be about my intersex journey. They can be about intersex advocacy. They can be about really anything. They can be about the Murdachs. They can be about how to get blood out of your bedroom sheets, which I would probably say don't kill anybody in your bedroom. But then I would tell you put hydrogen peroxide in with your laundry detergent. I mean, it literally can be anything that you want, but that will help us out. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube platform. We currently have about 650 followers on the YouTube channel. We're obviously trying to grow that out with close to 200,000 followers on TikTok. I'm trying to get some of those followers over here because I will be going live every Tuesday night in this platform, in this forum, just like this. And it's always great to have people joining us to chime in. It is an interactive broadcast each week, and it's just fun to be able to have that interconnection with all of you. It has been a pleasure. I'm going to read one more. I'm going to put it right up here on the screen. Did you know that Tara from the circus is still missing since 2019? I'll send you her missing persons post I just found on TikTok. That is so sad. There was an individual that we worked with at the circus. That's how Maribel and I know each other, Brooklyn Miss, named Tara. I can never say her last name. Sweetest individual, one of the sweetest I've ever met. Genuinely interested in everybody else. And I had the extreme pleasure of being partnered with her during Midnight Clowns. Midnight Clowns is the way that the circus family would celebrate the run of the show, the run of the circus, on the last night of their last performance before we would go back to our home base in New York. And it was literally everybody that supported all the performers for this last tour would do the run of the circus and play different characters in that. And Tara and I got to portray one of the acrobatic teams that was from China. And we had so much fun. And I posted that stuff before on TikTok, I think I did a long time ago. But Tara Dragani, I think is how you say her last name. And Brooklyn Miss Maribel was sharing that she went missing in 2019. And here we are 3 years later, 4 years later, and she's still missing and has not been found. So my heart goes out to her family. My heart goes out to all in the circus family that knew and loved her and supported her. That is sad. And that's sad. So I guess on that note, the people that are still in your life that you love, hug them tight, hug them close, and let them know that you love them. Life is short, and your life can change in an instant. So make sure that the people in your life that are important to you know it. Make sure that anybody that you care about their well-being, if they're in a situation that you feel is not a situation that is good for them or that they should be in, try and interact with them to get them out of that situation. I know people's hands are tied, sometimes even financially, but if you can provide an out, or if you can provide a stepping stone for them, then do that. Life is short. We're all struggling. Thank you all. Absolutely, 100% love all of you for joining me as well. So have a wonderful rest of the week. If you have joined us late, go back and listen to the beginning. We had this whole thing on kindness and something you should try to make sure, and that was mentioned in last week's as well, to make sure that you are leading the best kind life that you can. Kindness is a choice, and it is 100% free. And you never know what the other person on the other side is going through. So if you lead with kindness towards everybody that you meet in one day, it literally will open up everything for you. You will feel better, and it will make them feel better too. And with a little more loving kindness in this world, it would be a very, very different place. See you next week, everybody.
For more content, follow justjulie.com. That's just Julie, JULEIGH.com. Thank you to our guests, and thank you for joining us this evening. Join us next week as Julie tries a different rosé.